It was a moment that no one could have predicted. The tech conference was buzzing with excitement, a mix of industry professionals, young innovators, and eager students, all gathered in the grand hall to hear one of the most influential figures of the modern era speak, Elon Musk. The crowd was thick with anticipation as the lights dimmed, and Musk walked onto the stage, his signature confident stride commanding attention. But amid the sea of questions about SpaceX's next mission, Tesla's advancements, and artificial intelligence, there was one voice that would stand out above the rest. It wasn't from a seasoned entrepreneur or a Silicon Valley expert, but from a young girl, no more than 8 years old, standing on the edge of the stage with a question that made the entire room hold its breath. "Mr. Musk," Lily's voice echoed through the microphone, soft but clear. "Do you think machines will ever know about God?" For a split second, the entire room went silent. The buzz of excited whispers died down. People exchanged puzzled looks, unsure whether they'd heard correctly. A child's innocent question in a room full of engineers, scientists, and tech giants? It was unthinkable. Lily, clutching her father's hand, stood there with wide, earnest eyes, waiting for the man she had only ever heard about in news articles and YouTube videos to respond. Her father, a software engineer who had dragged her to the conference in hopes of inspiring her to pursue a career in technology, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had no idea what to expect. Musk's eyes lingered on Lily, the faintest smile forming at the corners of his lips as he took a moment to process her question. He wasn't used to being asked about religion, especially in a room full of high-tech enthusiasts. Most people who admired him were more concerned with rockets, electric cars, and the future of artificial intelligence than with the existence of a higher power. And yet, here was this little girl, asking a question that seemed both so simple and so profound. The audience waited. Some were holding their breath, unsure if Musk would dismiss the question, brush it off with a quick joke, or give a more philosophical response. But then Musk did something unexpected. He paused, his face softening as he thought carefully about his answer. "You know," Musk began slowly, his voice carrying across the room, "I don't think machines, no matter how intelligent they become, will ever truly understand God. Not in the way we do." Lily's eyes widened, her heart racing as she listened intently. "There's something about the human experience, something beyond just logic and computation, that makes us capable of faith," Musk continued, his tone respectful and thoughtful. "Technology is a tool, a way for us to explore the universe and solve problems, but it can never replace the wonder and mystery we feel when we think about the larger questions, like the existence of God or the meaning of life." For a brief moment, Lily's world seemed to stand still. She had asked the question not to challenge Musk, but because, deep down, she wanted to understand something that had always puzzled her. Was there more to life than the machines and technology she saw all around her? Did all the things she learned in school, science, math, engineering, have an answer for the big questions? The ones about love, about purpose, about God? Musk's answer wasn't like the one she had received from her father, who was always focused on the practical, the logical, the measurable. No, Musk's answer felt different. It felt real. It felt human. The crowd had been waiting for a soundbite, a snappy retort, a statement that could be easily tweeted. But Musk didn't give them that. Instead, he gave something far more meaningful, a quiet reflection on the mystery of life itself. And in that moment, Lily felt something she hadn't felt before, an overwhelming sense of peace. Her father, sitting beside her, had been nervous when he saw her about to ask the question. What would people think? What would Musk think? He had never really considered the intersection between technology and faith. In his world, everything had a logical explanation. But now, watching his daughter's face light up with understanding, he felt a small shift inside himself. Maybe there was more to life than just code and machines. As the Q&A session continued, Lily remained deep in thought. Her father, too, seemed lost in his own reflections. But there was something different about the way he was looking at her now. Something softer, more open. The rest of the conference went on as planned, with talks about the future of space exploration, AI, and energy, but Lily's mind couldn't shake the question she had asked, and Musk's answer. "Do you think machines will ever know about God?" Her own words echoed in her mind. And for the first time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, there was more to this world than what could be explained by science. Later that night, as Lily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't help but wonder, what is God? And if machines can't understand him, then what makes us, humans, different? This question would send her on a journey that would change the course of her life, and her father's too. But first, she would need to understand why she had asked that question in the first place. Lily didn't know it yet, but that question, the one she had asked Elon Musk, was about to change everything. But to understand how, you had to know a little about Lily herself. Lily Jenkins was not the average 8-year-old. While other kids spent their weekends playing video games or riding bikes, Lily had a curiosity that couldn't be satisfied by simple distractions. She loved books, thick ones with pictures and small text that told stories of distant planets, far-off galaxies, and strange creatures that might one day be discovered. But there was always something else in her mind, something that no book could fully explain. She often found herself gazing up at the stars, wondering if someone, or something, was out there, watching her. She had asked her parents about God many times before. Her mom, who had passed away when Lily was just 5, had often spoken of God in gentle whispers, telling Lily that God was everywhere, in the sky, in the trees, in the kindness of strangers, and in the love that people shared. But after her mother's death, those conversations had become fewer, replaced by the quiet, sometimes uneasy silence of a father who didn't have all the answers. Lily's father, Thomas Jenkins, was a software engineer, a logical man who lived and breathed technology. He spent long hours at work, his face always glowing from the light of his computer screen, working on the latest breakthrough in artificial intelligence. In his world, every problem had a solution. Every question had an answer. He didn't talk much about God, faith, or anything that couldn't be explained by science. It wasn't that he didn't believe, he just didn't think about it. His life revolved around what he could see, touch, and measure. Faith, for him, seemed more like a puzzle that could never quite be solved. But Lily, even at a young age, had an intuitive understanding of the world that went beyond what her father could explain. She noticed things others didn't, small details that seemed to connect everything around her, as if there was a thread tying all things together. It wasn't just the stars that intrigued her. It was the idea that there might be something more, something hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Lily's father, Thomas, had tried his best to raise her with the tools he knew. He encouraged her to think critically, to solve problems with logic and reasoning. When he took her to the tech conference, he hoped it would ignite a spark in her, a passion for innovation and technology, just as it had for him. He knew that Lily had an incredible mind. She was sharp, quick to understand complex concepts, and always asking questions that made him proud. But what he didn't realize was that Lily was asking questions that went beyond the world of tech. She wanted to understand the bigger picture. It was at that tech conference, sitting beside her father in the crowded hall, that Lily's question had come to her, unprompted, unfiltered. Do you think machines will ever know about God? It wasn't a question she had rehearsed or planned to ask. It had simply felt right at that moment. Maybe it was because, for the first time in her life, she felt a deep, quiet longing for answers. Or maybe it was because, standing in that room full of bright minds, she felt like something was missing, something important, something that no machine could ever replace. The moment she asked that question, the world around her seemed to freeze. She could feel the tension in the air, the silence that followed. Her father, sitting beside her, had stiffened, unsure of how to respond. But it wasn't just her father who was uncomfortable, it was everyone in that room. They were all there to discuss the future of technology, the next big breakthrough, but Lily had reminded them of something else entirely. The mystery of the unknown, the unquantifiable things in life that no amount of technology could explain. Lily wasn't asking about coding or robotics. She wasn't asking about the latest AI developments or how to design the perfect algorithm. No, her question had come from a deeper place, a place in her heart that, despite all the technology around her, was still searching for something more. She was searching for meaning. Thomas, for all his logic, didn't know how to answer her. He couldn't. But that moment, that unexpected question, planted a seed, a small, almost imperceptible seed that would begin to grow in both father and daughter, slowly but surely, over time. That evening, as they drove home from the conference, Thomas noticed something different about Lily. She was quieter than usual, her gaze lost in thought. He wasn't sure if it was the excitement of the conference or something else, but he knew one thing for sure: her question had changed the way he saw her. But more than that, it was beginning to change the way he saw himself. The drive back from the conference was long, the road stretching out in front of them like an endless ribbon of black asphalt. The car's tires hummed quietly as Thomas Jenkins drove, occasionally glancing over at his daughter, who was unusually quiet in the passenger seat. Her wide, curious eyes were fixed on the window, her mind seemingly miles away. Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them today. It wasn't just the fact that Lily had asked Elon Musk a question in front of hundreds of people, though that alone was enough to make any parent proud. It was the way she'd asked it. There had been a depth in her voice, a sincerity that reminded him of his late wife, Margaret. She had always been the one to ask questions like that, the ones that made you stop and think. And it had always been Thomas's role to answer those questions with logic and reason, to calm her doubts with facts. But Lily wasn't Margaret. And this time, Thomas didn't have an answer. He couldn't give her the simple explanation she craved. How could he? For all his knowledge of coding and algorithms, he had never really pondered the idea of God. It wasn't that he was an atheist. He just didn't think about it. He had always been more focused on what he could build, what he could measure. Faith, for him, was something distant, something that didn't have a place in the world of technology he so deeply loved. As they drove, Lily finally broke the silence. "Dad?" Thomas glanced over at her, his brow furrowed in thought. "Do you think machines will ever know about God?" The question hung in the air, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment to resurface. Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The words Elon Musk had spoken earlier echoed in his mind, along with the lingering question that Lily had asked. He had never really thought about it before. To him, the world had always made sense through the lens of logic and data. But now, with Lily's innocent question, he was starting to see cracks in that view. Maybe the world wasn't as simple as numbers and equations. Maybe there were things that couldn't be explained by algorithms or machine learning. Maybe the things that mattered most, love, faith, the search for meaning, were beyond the reach of technology. "I don't know, sweetheart," Thomas said, his voice quieter than usual. I guess I never really thought about it. I mean, machines are just tools, right? They do what we tell them to do." Lily nodded slowly, but her expression didn't change. She wasn't satisfied with the answer. She had expected more, perhaps, but what she didn't realize was that her question had started a process inside her father that would take time to unfold. I think maybe machines can do a lot of things," she said softly, "but maybe they can't understand things like love or kindness or God." She turned to her father, her eyes wide with sincerity. "Do you think people are different because we can feel those things?" Thomas swallowed, caught off guard by the depth of Lily's words. He had always prided himself on being able to explain things clearly, to lay out the answers in neat, understandable terms. But here, in this moment, Lily's simple observation had left him speechless. Was there something to her question? Was there something more than what could be measured or built? "I don't know," he admitted finally, his voice tinged with uncertainty. I think we're different, yes, but I don't know if that means we understand everything about the world or about God. We just have to keep looking for answers, I guess." Lily was quiet again, her face thoughtful. The conversation seemed to drift, like a balloon carried away by the wind, and for the rest of the drive home, neither father nor daughter spoke much more about it. But the silence was not uncomfortable. It was filled with something deeper, something unspoken, that both of them knew had just begun to take root. That evening, as they returned to their quiet house, Thomas went through the usual motions of the night, preparing dinner, finishing up some work, and keeping busy. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, not just in Lily, but in him too. Her question had ignited something, a flicker of curiosity about the bigger questions in life, the ones he had always brushed aside. For the first time in a long while, He found himself wondering if there was more to the universe than what he could see and measure. Meanwhile, Lily sat at the kitchen table, a small notebook open in front of her. She had started scribbling down her thoughts, questions, observations, things she wanted to understand better. "What is God?" she had written in big, bold letters at the top of the page. Below, she had drawn a picture of a rocket ship, her favorite thing in the world, thanks to SpaceX, and beside it, a simple drawing of the stars. She had drawn them the way she saw them when she lay in the grass in her backyard, staring up at the sky. That night, as she lay in bed, Lily couldn't stop thinking about her conversation with her dad. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she didn't have all the answers either. She didn't even know where to begin. But there was one thing she was certain of. She wasn't going to stop asking. For the first time in her life, Lily felt like she was on the edge of something big. The question she had asked Elon Musk wasn't just a passing curiosity. It had opened a door to a new world, one where science, technology, and faith might just be connected in ways she couldn't yet understand. The next day, Lily found herself staring up at the stars again, her heart full of wonder and questions. She had to know more. She had to keep asking. And so, as she sat on the grassy hill in her backyard, her mind raced with possibilities. What if the answers to her questions were closer than she thought? What if the journey to find them had already begun? The next morning, Lily woke up early. It was still dark outside, the stars twinkling faintly through the small gap in her curtains. She sat up in bed and stretched, the quiet stillness of the house comforting her. Her father had already left for work, as he always did. But this morning felt different. There was a sense of urgency in her heart, a whispering feeling that told her the questions she had asked were only the beginning. She grabbed her favorite notebook, worn at the edges from all the pages she had filled with drawings and thoughts, and started writing again. But this time, her words were different. This wasn't about rockets or machines or even the stars. No, this time, her writing was focused on something deeper. She needed to understand more about the idea of God and about why she felt so curious, so restless about it. "What is God?" she wrote, as she had done last night. Then, below that, she added something new. "Why do people believe in him? Why do I want to believe in something too?" Lily knew she wasn't the only one who had ever asked these questions. She had seen people at the conference, in the streets, and even in the movies talking about faith in God. Some were sure of their beliefs, while others were more hesitant, uncertain. But she didn't know where she stood. She didn't know if she even believed in God, but she couldn't help but feel there was something important she needed to understand. The curiosity gnawed at her. Was there a way to know if God existed? How could a machine, or a person, for that matter, ever truly understand something like that? As the days went on, Lily became more and more determined. Every evening after school, she would sit on the porch of their house and gaze at the stars, hoping that somehow, if she looked long enough, the answers would come to her. It was on one of these quiet evenings, as the orange glow of sunset began to fade into twilight, that she decided to ask her father about it again. "Dad," she said, looking up from her notebook as Thomas walked through the door, his face tired from a long day at work. "Yeah, kiddo?" He dropped his briefcase by the door and sat down at the kitchen table, glancing at her with a faint, tired smile. "Do you think we can ever really know if God is real?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. She knew her question might seem strange to him, but she couldn't keep it to herself anymore. Thomas hesitated, his eyes lingering on his daughter. She had asked him this kind of question before, but never with such seriousness. He had always answered her with simple logic or distracted her with another subject, not out of malice, but because he simply didn't have an answer. How could he? "I don't know, Lily," he said after a long pause. "I think that's a question a lot of people have. Some people believe very strongly, and some don't believe at all. And there are others who just don't know. I'm in that last group, I guess. I don't know if I believe, but I don't think I have to figure it out right away." Lily frowned, not because she was disappointed with his answer, but because it didn't feel like a complete answer to her. She had heard her father's words, but they didn't fill the space inside her that was aching for something more, something real. "But why do people believe then? What makes them so sure?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Faith, I guess, Thomas replied softly, leaning back in his chair. Faith is hard to explain, but for some people, it's just something they feel. It's not about evidence or facts. It's about believing in something beyond what we can see or touch. Lily nodded slowly, taking it in. But if it's all about believing in something you can't see, then how do you know it's real? Thomas opened his mouth to speak, but closed it again. The question caught him off guard. He had never really thought about faith in those terms before. What did it mean to believe in something you couldn't prove? He could talk about rockets and cars and artificial intelligence all day, but this was something entirely different. I don't know, Lily, he said after a long pause, his voice quiet. Maybe it's one of those things we just have to feel inside. Some people just know, I guess. Lily thought about this for a long time, staring out the window at the darkening sky. She had always admired her father's ability to explain things, to break down complex problems into manageable pieces. But with this question, there was no formula, no equation. And it made her wonder, maybe this was what everyone else had that she didn't. Maybe they had a feeling, an understanding that she was still missing. As the night wore on, Lily continued to think about what her father had said. Some people just know. It was a simple phrase, but it stuck with her. It made her wonder, could I ever just know, like they do? That night, as she lay in bed, Lily made a promise to herself. She would keep searching. She wasn't sure what the answers would be, but she would not stop asking, not stop seeking. Whether it was about God, about love, or about why the world worked the way it did, she had to find out. And as she drifted off to sleep, one thought stayed with her. Maybe the search itself is the answer. Maybe the feeling comes when you stop trying to figure everything out and just start living the questions. The next day, Lily had an idea. It was a little crazy, but she was determined to find answers. What if she didn't just ask her dad or Elon Musk for answers? What if she asked someone who might know more? Someone who had spent their whole life searching for meaning. The next day, after school, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, her heart racing with a new idea. Her mind was buzzing with possibilities, and for the first time in a while, she felt like she was on the edge of something big. She couldn't just sit around wondering anymore. She needed to take action. But the problem was, where should she start? She knew what she wanted, answers. Not just from books or documentaries, or even her father, but from someone who had lived a life devoted to searching for truth. Someone who could help her bridge the gap between what she had learned from science and what she longed to understand about faith. Her eyes landed on the one person who had always fascinated her. Someone whose name was synonymous with discovery and exploration. A person who had spent his life seeking the answers to the universe's biggest questions. Elon Musk. Lily had admired him ever since she learned about SpaceX and Tesla. The idea of Mars colonies, reusable rockets, and all the other incredible things he was working on filled her with awe. But now, after her unexpected interaction with him at the conference, she realized something. He had a deep understanding of the unknown, a drive to uncover mysteries that no one else dared to explore. What if he could help her with the biggest question of all? Lily's fingers hovered over her phone. She had a simple idea. If she could reach out to him, if she could somehow get her question directly to him, maybe he could help her understand what it meant to believe in something bigger than herself. Her heart beat faster as she opened her email app. She quickly typed, subject, a question about God. Dear Mr. Musk, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Lily Jenkins, and I'm 8 years old. I had the honor of asking you a question during the SpaceX conference, and I've been thinking a lot about it ever since. I asked you if machines could ever know about God. Since then, I've been wondering, how can we know if God is real? I've asked my dad, but I still don't understand it completely. I think it's something really important, but I'm not sure where to start looking for answers. You've spent your life looking for answers to really big questions about the universe, space, and technology, and I was hoping you might be able to help me with mine. Thank you so much for taking the time to read my message. I'd be really grateful for any advice or thoughts you might have. Sincerely, Lily Jenkins. She reread the email, biting her lip nervously. Was it too much? Too weird? But before she could second-guess herself, she clicked send. Her heart pounded as she put the phone down. What if he never responded? What if it was all a waste of time? But even as those thoughts raced through her head, another feeling overcame her. It was a quiet but powerful one, the feeling that this was the right thing to do. Now, it was just a matter of waiting. For the next few days, Lily carried a quiet hope inside her. She kept checking her phone constantly, wondering if Elon Musk would write back. Meanwhile, life continued as usual. She went to school, worked on her homework, and sat on the porch every evening, gazing up at the stars as though they might have the answers she was seeking. Her father, meanwhile, seemed oblivious to her growing obsession with her question. He noticed that she was spending more time reading, more time asking about things like religion, science, and the nature of the universe, but he didn't suspect that she was reaching out to people for answers. He assumed she was just doing what curious kids do, asking a lot of questions and figuring it out herself. But Lily was no longer just asking questions. She was looking for real answers. She was setting off on a quest, a journey that would take her into the heart of the unknown. One late afternoon, as the golden light of sunset spilled across the living room, Lily's phone buzzed. She nearly dropped it in her excitement as she saw the notification. Elon Musk replied. She opened the email in a rush, her heart racing, and began reading. Subject: Re. A question about God. Dear Lily, thank you so much for your thoughtful email. I'm honored that you reached out to me with such an important question. To be honest, this is something I've thought about quite a bit myself. As someone who works in technology, I often find myself confronted by the question of whether we can create something truly alive, something that has awareness and understanding beyond programming. In a way, it's not so different from the question you've asked about God. Both are mysteries that we don't fully understand. My thoughts on this: I don't know if machines can ever understand God in the way humans do. But I do think that the search for understanding, whether it's about the universe, life, or God, is what makes us human. It's the search that matters, not necessarily the answer. I think that's something very powerful about human beings, our ability to ask questions and seek out the unknown. You're already on the right path by asking the big questions. Keep exploring, keep wondering, and most importantly, don't stop looking for your own answers. You might not get all the answers right away, but the fact that you're asking them will shape the rest of your life in ways you can't imagine yet. I wish you all the best on your journey of discovery. Best, Elon Musk. Lily sat there for a long time, staring at the email. It wasn't the answer she had expected, but it was exactly the answer she needed. It wasn't about having everything figured out. It was about the search, the quest for understanding, and she felt a quiet sense of peace settle in her heart. Elon Musk's words echoed in her mind. The search for understanding is what makes us human. Lily closed her eyes for a moment and smiled. It was a small answer, but it felt like a giant step forward. She had the permission to keep asking, keep searching, and that was more than enough for now. With a new sense of purpose, Lily began to explore her questions in new ways, through books, through conversations, and through her own experiences. But her journey was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. And soon, she would discover that sometimes, the answers you find lead to even bigger questions. Lily woke up the next morning with a new sense of clarity. She had been given a spark, something that ignited the curiosity deep within her. Elon Musk's response had not given her the definitive answer she had hoped for, but it had given her something more powerful: permission to continue asking, to continue searching, and most importantly, to understand that the search itself was just as meaningful as the answers. Her mind was racing with possibilities. What was it that made people believe in something beyond themselves? Was it faith? Was it love? Was it the stars in the sky, or the way a rocket launched into space, defying gravity and reaching for the impossible? She didn't know the answers yet, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't going to stop. Over the next few weeks, Lily became a little obsessed with learning everything she could about belief, faith, and the search for meaning. Every day after school, she would disappear into her room, burying her head in books, articles, and videos about religion, science, and philosophy. She read about ancient religions, the history of space exploration, the mysteries of quantum physics, and even stories of people who claimed to have had spiritual experiences. Her dad noticed the change, of course. He would come home from work to find her hunched over in her room, scribbling notes or reading through heavy books. He didn't quite understand what had sparked this sudden interest, but he respected her need to explore. He hadn't seen her this driven in a long time. One evening, after dinner, Lily came to the table with an excited expression on her face. "Dad," she said, her voice full of enthusiasm, "I've been reading about something called the search for truth. It's all about how people, like scientists and philosophers and even religious leaders, spend their whole lives trying to understand the world and the meaning of life. Some of them believe in God, and some of them don't. But they all keep asking questions, just like I am. Isn't that cool?" Thomas smiled, a little amused by her enthusiasm. "It sure sounds like it's fascinating, kiddo. But, you're not thinking of becoming a philosopher, are you?" Lily laughed, shaking her head. "I don't know. Maybe. I just think it's amazing how people have different ideas about why we're here and what the universe is all about. Like, some people believe that God created everything, and others think it's all random. And then there are people who think it's a mix of both." Thomas put down his fork, looking at her with a thoughtful expression. "That's a lot of big ideas for one person to take in, Lily. But I'm glad you're exploring these things. It's important to ask questions and find your own answers." Lily nodded eagerly. "I think the most important thing is to keep asking. I'm starting to understand that the journey of asking questions is what helps us grow, even if we don't have all the answers right away." Her dad raised an eyebrow. "That sounds a lot like what Elon Musk said to you. You know, that might be one of the most useful things you've learned so far." Lily smiled, feeling a warm sense of pride. "Yeah, I think so too. I just wish I had more answers, you know? But I guess that's part of it, having faith that the answers will come when they're meant to." Despite her newfound understanding, Lily still felt there was something missing. She was learning so much, but there was a piece of the puzzle that just wouldn't click. She knew she needed to talk to someone. Someone who had spent their life exploring the idea of faith and belief in God, someone who could guide her. And then, out of the blue, an opportunity appeared. Her school was organizing a guest lecture series on the intersection of science and faith, and the guest speaker was none other than Dr. Eleanor Reyes, a renowned theologian and philosopher who had spent decades studying the relationship between religion and the sciences. She had written books on the topic and was well known for her ability to bridge the gap between belief in God and the discoveries of modern science. When Lily saw the flyer in the school hallway, her heart skipped a beat. This was the person she had been looking for. That afternoon, as soon as she got home, Lily excitedly told her dad about the lecture. "Dad, I just found out that there's going to be a lecture about science and faith at school, and the speaker is a theologian. She's written books about how science and religion can actually go hand in hand. Can we go?" "Please," she asked, her voice full of excitement. Thomas raised an eyebrow. "Science and faith? That's an interesting combination. You sure you want to sit through that?" Lily's face lit up. "Yes, I think this could help me understand even more. I need to hear what she has to say about the big questions." Thomas hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "All right, kid. I'll take you. But don't expect me to get all philosophical with you afterward, okay?" Lily grinned. "Deal." The night of the lecture arrived, and Lily could hardly contain her excitement. She and her dad arrived at the school auditorium early, and the place quickly filled with students, teachers, and local community members. The atmosphere was buzzing with anticipation. Dr. Eleanor Reyes stood at the front of the room, a calm and composed presence, ready to speak on a topic that had fascinated and perplexed people for centuries. Lily sat up straight, notebook in hand, ready to absorb every word. Dr. Reyes began by explaining the idea that science and faith were not mutually exclusive, as many people often believed. She spoke about the history of the great scientists, people like Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, who had deeply spiritual beliefs, even as they made groundbreaking contributions to our understanding of the universe. The search for truth, Dr. Reyes explained, whether through religion or science, is driven by the same human impulse, the desire to understand our place in the cosmos, to make sense of the mysteries of life. Science seeks to answer how things work, while faith addresses the why. But both paths are ultimately united by the same thirst for knowledge. Lily felt a thrill run through her. This was exactly what she had been searching for. A way to understand that both science and faith could coexist, that one did not invalidate the other, but instead complemented it in a beautiful way. It was the first time Lily had heard someone speak about the two ideas with such harmony. As the lecture came to a close, Dr. Reyes invited questions from the audience. Lily's hand shot up almost immediately. "Yes, you there," Dr. Reyes called, smiling as she pointed to Lily. Lily stood up, her voice slightly nervous but steady. "I've been asking myself a lot about God and how science can fit with faith. I always thought that the two were separate, like, if you believe in God, then you can't be a scientist. But now I think I understand that maybe they can go together. I'm just wondering, though, how can we know if God is real, if we can't see him? And how do we know when we're on the right path to understanding?" The room fell silent for a moment, and Dr. Reyes's eyes softened. "Ah, that's the question, isn't it? The answer is, you may never know for certain in the way we know facts from science, but you'll know in your heart. The search, the questions themselves, are part of what brings you closer to the truth. Just as science asks questions and tests them, faith asks questions and seeks understanding. Keep searching, Lily, and know that every question you ask brings you a little closer to the answer." Lily sat down slowly, her heart feeling full. For the first time, she felt like she was on the right path. The questions were never going to stop, but that was okay. The journey, her journey, had only just begun. As Lily left the lecture with her dad, a new sense of understanding washed over her. But little did she know, her search for answers was about to take an unexpected turn. A turn that would lead her closer to the truth in ways she hadn't even imagined. As Lily walked out of the auditorium with her dad, she felt a new sense of peace in her heart. Dr. Reyes's words had opened her eyes to something important. Faith and science weren't two separate worlds. They were two sides of the same coin, each searching for something greater, something beyond themselves. For the first time, Lily felt like she had a real path forward, a way to explore her questions without feeling lost or confused. But the road ahead was still uncharted. She didn't have all the answers yet, and the journey to understanding God and the mysteries of the universe was just beginning. Lily had learned that it wasn't the answers that mattered most. It was the search itself. On the drive home, Lily and her dad didn't talk much. Thomas could tell that Lily was deep in thought, and he wasn't sure how to keep up with the pace of her mind anymore. She had changed. The questions she asked were no longer about science projects or favorite TV shows. They were about the very nature of life, existence, and belief. When they finally arrived home, Thomas helped Lily with her coat and gave her a quiet smile. "Well, kiddo, looks like you've got a lot to think about now, huh?" Lily looked up at him and nodded. "Yeah, but I think it's a good thing. I feel like I'm starting to get it, Dad. Maybe not all of it yet, but I'm getting closer." Thomas smiled, a little amused and proud. "I think you're onto something big, Lily. Just don't forget, sometimes, the answers aren't always as clear as we want them to be. But if you keep asking, they'll come. Just like you said earlier, the journey is what matters." Lily's eyes sparkled. "Yeah, I'm ready for the journey." The next few days were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Lily pored over the notes she had taken during Dr. Reyes's lecture, reading and rereading them, trying to absorb every word. She spent hours in the library after school, devouring books about philosophy, theology, and the philosophy of science. The more she learned, the more questions she had. But somehow, instead of feeling frustrated, she felt energized. It was like the search itself had become her greatest adventure. One evening, as Lily sat in her room, her phone buzzed again. She had sent an email to Dr. Reyes after the lecture, thanking her for the insights she had shared. She hadn't expected a response. After all, Dr. Reyes was a busy woman. But to Lily's surprise, there was an email from her in her inbox. Subject: Thank you for your question. Dear Lily, I was so pleased to receive your message. It's not often that I hear from someone so young with such thoughtful and profound questions. You've clearly been thinking deeply about the relationship between science, faith, and the search for truth. I can already see that you're on a path that will lead you to a great many discoveries. As you continue on your journey, I encourage you to remember that no one has all the answers. We are all just pieces in a much larger puzzle. The important thing is to remain open, to continue questioning, and to be willing to look at things from different perspectives. God, if He is real, is far greater than we can ever fully understand. But the search for Him, just like the search for truth in science, is what helps us grow, both in wisdom and in spirit. Keep asking. Keep exploring. You have the potential to understand more than you think. Warmly, Dr. Eleanor Reyes. Lily sat back, her heart swelling with excitement. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a huge validation. Dr. Reyes, the person who had helped her make sense of so many things, had taken the time to encourage her. That was more than she could have hoped for. She quickly wrote a reply. Subject: thank you for your question. Dear Dr. Reyes, thank you so much for your kind response. It means the world to me. I will definitely keep asking and exploring. I think I've learned that the questions are just as important as the answers, and I'm excited to see where this journey takes me. I will never stop searching for the truth. Sincerely, Lily Jenkins. The next day, as Lily was getting ready for school, her dad came into her room with a thoughtful expression on his face. You know, Lily, he began, sitting down on the edge of her bed, I've been thinking about what you've been asking lately, about God and the universe and all those big questions. Lily looked up at him, waiting for him to continue. I don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone does, Thomas said, his voice serious. But one thing I do know is that asking those questions is what makes us human. The search for meaning, the curiosity we have, it's what makes us who we are. And I'm proud of you for wanting to find your own answers, even if it's a long journey. Lily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. Thanks, Dad. I'm just trying to find my own way, you know? I don't have it all figured out yet, but I think I'm getting there. I know you are, Thomas replied, ruffling her hair. And whatever path you choose, I'll be here to support you. But as Lily continued her search for answers, the path ahead of her took an unexpected turn. What started as a search for understanding about God would soon become something deeper, something that would challenge not only her faith, but also her beliefs about life, love, and the very meaning of existence. One rainy afternoon, as Lily sat at her desk working on her latest research about the relationship between science and religion, she received another email. This one was from Elon Musk. Subject: a question about God. Dear Lily, I've been thinking a lot about your question, and I wanted to share something with you. It's not an answer, but it might be something worth considering. I've always believed that the search for truth is the most important thing we can do. And while I don't have all the answers about God, I do believe that the desire to understand, whether through science, faith, or both, is what pushes humanity forward. But there's something else I've learned over the years. Sometimes, it's not the questions that lead us to truth, but the people we meet along the way, the relationships we build, the love we share, and the way we help each other. That, more than anything else, has been the key to understanding the world. I don't know if that helps, but I think it's worth considering. Best, Elon Musk. Lily stared at the email, her mind racing. It was a small piece of advice, but it carried weight. It wasn't just about asking questions. It was about the people you met on your journey, the relationships you built, and the love you shared. That was what mattered most. Suddenly, Lily realized that her search had taken on a new dimension. It wasn't just about finding answers anymore. It was about the people she met along the way and the ways they would shape her understanding of the world. The journey, as Elon Musk had put it, was as much about connection and love as it was about knowledge and discovery. With her heart full of new realizations, Lily set off on a new part of her journey, a journey that would take her beyond science, beyond philosophy, and into the heart of something far more powerful than she had ever imagined. Lily couldn't stop thinking about Elon Musk's email. The idea that the people we meet and the love we share could play such an integral role in the search for truth hit her harder than she expected. It wasn't that she hadn't understood the importance of relationships before, but this felt different. It felt like a key had been turned in her mind, unlocking something new. She spent the next few days reflecting on this idea. Was it possible that the answers to the big questions about life, God, and the universe weren't just to be found in books or lectures, but in the way people cared for each other, the way they connected, supported, and loved one another? What if the very act of searching was as important as the answer itself? and that the relationships she built along the way could shape her journey. Lily's thinking had shifted from abstract concepts to something more tangible: the people in her life, her family, her friends, and even the strangers she encountered along her journey. Each of them had a role to play, a story to tell, a piece of the puzzle that could lead her closer to understanding the deeper mysteries of life. It was a Saturday afternoon when the next step in her journey took an unexpected turn. Lily was sitting at her favorite cafe, a little corner spot near the bookstore downtown, sipping a cup of hot cocoa. She loved this place. It was quiet, peaceful, and the perfect environment for reflecting. She brought along her journal, planning to jot down her thoughts about her recent exploration into the relationship between faith and science. Just as she opened her journal, a familiar voice broke her focus. "Well, if it isn't the philosopher herself?" Lily looked up, startled, and saw her best friend, Emma, standing in front of her with a teasing smile. Emma was a whirlwind of energy, always making people laugh and never hesitating to speak her mind. It was one of the things Lily loved about her. "Hey, Emma," Lily said, smiling back. "What's up? Just thought I'd find you here. You're always in this corner, thinking deep thoughts and reading heavy books." Emma sat down across from her, her eyes scanning the table. "Let me guess. More space rockets and religious debates." Lily chuckled. "Well, sort of. I've been reading a lot about the intersection between science and faith. You know, how both can help us understand the world and maybe even God." Emma raised an eyebrow. "You? Asking about God? I thought you were the prove it with facts and equations type." Lily smiled sheepishly. "I still am, mostly, but something clicked for me recently. I mean, I've been asking a lot of questions, trying to figure out if science and religion can be connected, you know? Like, what if there's a way to believe in both? What if the search for truth isn't just about answers, it's about the journey itself?" Emma leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing in thought. "That's deep, Lily. I had no idea you were into all of that." "I wasn't really," Lily admitted. "But I've started to realize that the questions are just as important as the answers. And what's more, the people we meet along the way, our friends, our families, those relationships might be just as much a part of the search as anything else." Emma tilted her head. "Wait a minute. Are you saying the meaning of life is about connecting with people? Like, love and friendship are the answers?" Lily nodded slowly. "I don't know if they're the answers, but I think they play a huge part in how we understand everything else. Like, maybe love and connection are part of the bigger picture. If God exists, maybe he's in the love we share with each other. Maybe that's where we find the answers." Emma blinked, clearly trying to process the idea. "I think you're getting somewhere. I mean, love makes the world go around, right? But how do you know it's not just human nature, that connection and love are just, well, part of being human?" Lily thought about it for a moment. "I think that's part of the search. I don't have all the answers, but I think why we love and connect with people might be the key to understanding everything else. Like, love isn't just a human instinct. It could be part of something bigger. Maybe that's where we start finding God, or at least understanding how we fit into the universe." Emma's eyes softened. "I guess that makes sense. It's kind of beautiful when you think about it." Lily smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "I'm not sure where this is going, but I feel like I'm closer to something. Like the journey is more important than the destination." Emma leaned in. "And you think the answers are out there? Do you think God, or whatever it is listening?" Lily paused, a little unsure of how to answer. She thought back to the email from Elon Musk. Sometimes it's not the questions that lead us to truth, but the people we meet along the way. Was that what Emma was doing here? Was their friendship, the way they connected, a part of her search? "I think it's all connected," Lily said softly. "The search for truth, the people we meet, the love we share. Maybe that's how we find meaning in the universe. Not by looking for the answers in some far-off place, but by looking at the people right in front of us." Emma looked at her for a long time before nodding slowly. "I think you might be onto something, Lily. This whole life's a journey thing. Maybe it's more than just a cheesy saying. Maybe it's the truth." Lily smiled, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was chasing something elusive. The search for truth wasn't just about studying or asking the right questions. It was about experiencing life, forming connections, and building relationships. It was about the love and understanding that happened between people along the way. After Emma left the cafe, Lily sat for a while, reflecting on their conversation. She had come a long way in her search, but she knew that this was just one more piece of the puzzle. As the rain continued to fall outside, she felt a renewed sense of peace. She had learned something important today, not just about the world, but about herself. Lily was no longer just searching for answers. She was beginning to understand that the journey was about discovering those answers in unexpected ways. Maybe the truth wasn't as far away as she thought. Maybe, just maybe, it was closer than she had ever imagined. As Lily continued her journey of discovery, the deeper connections she formed with those around her began to reveal a greater truth, one that would challenge everything she thought she knew about life, love, and God. And soon, she would face a moment that would change everything forever. Lily's thoughts continued to swirl, like a storm of ideas, doubts, and small epiphanies. Her conversation with Emma had pushed her deeper into the idea that truth wasn't just about finding the right answers. It was about understanding the way we connected with others, the way we loved, and how we navigated the complexities of life together. But she still couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something. The journey was important, yes, but where was the end? Was there an end? And more importantly, what role did God play in all of this? It was a question that had gnawed at her for weeks, and despite all her reading, all her conversations, she hadn't found a satisfying answer. It felt like a puzzle with too many pieces, pieces that didn't quite fit together. The more she learned, the more she realized how much she didn't know. But then one evening, everything changed. It was a chilly Thursday night, and Lily was curled up on the couch in the living room, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. She had just finished reading a particularly challenging book on the nature of God and the universe. The book presented theories about the origin of life, the cosmos, and even the role of a divine creator, but the author's conclusions felt like they were stretching the limits of both science and faith. As fascinating as it was, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was something missing, something deeper. She let out a frustrated sigh and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts drifted to the one person who had changed her perspective on everything. Elon Musk. His email had stayed with her. The part about how people and the love they shared were part of the bigger picture. Maybe that was what was missing, the human connection. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, pulling her from her thoughts. Lily stood up, feeling a flicker of curiosity. Who could it be at this hour? She walked to the door and opened it to find none other than Dr. Eleanor Reyes, the scientist and philosopher who had inspired so much of her recent thinking. Dr. Reyes? What are you doing here? Lily asked, surprised but thrilled. She had never expected to see Dr. Reyes in person again, let alone at her front door. I know this might seem strange, but I've been thinking a lot about our conversation at the lecture, Dr. Reyes said with a warm smile, and I wanted to reach out. I think you're on the right track with your thinking, Lily. Your questions about the relationship between science and faith, well, I think it's something worth exploring together. Lily's heart raced. You want to explore this together? But I don't even know where to start. I still feel like I'm missing something. Dr. Reyes nodded thoughtfully. I know that feeling. When I was your age, I was struggling with the same questions. It wasn't until I realized that the answers don't come from just one source that things started to click. Science can tell us a lot about how the world works, but faith can help us understand why it works the way it does. And sometimes, the most profound answers come from people, from the connections we make with each other. Lily blinked, her mind racing. You really think that? That the answers might come from people? Absolutely, Dr. Reyes said gently. People can be the bridge between knowledge and wisdom. It's not just about understanding the universe from a distance. It's about understanding it from within, through our relationships, our emotions, our experiences. That's where you'll find the truth. Sometimes, Lily, it's not the big grand discoveries that matter most. It's the small, intimate moments of connection. That's where you'll find God, if you're looking for him. Lily felt a lump form in her throat. Could it really be that simple? Was the search for truth really more about how we relate to each other than any grand scientific theory or theological argument? Dr. Reyes stayed for several hours, engaging in a deep conversation with Lily about her thoughts and experiences. They talked about everything, from quantum physics to the nature of human connection. They shared ideas, perspectives, and even a few personal stories. And by the time Dr. Reyes left, Lily felt as though she had uncovered a truth far more profound than anything she had read in books. As she sat back down on the couch, Lily's mind was buzzing. She understood now what had been missing from her thinking: the importance of connection. It wasn't just about facts and data, it was about people. Her relationships, her family, her friends, even strangers, were the key to understanding the world. And perhaps, just perhaps, they were the key to understanding God, too. The next day, Lily was at school, still reflecting on her conversation with Dr. Reyes. She couldn't wait to share everything she had learned with Emma. But when she arrived at their usual hangout spot by the lockers, Emma wasn't there. Instead, there was a note tucked into the pocket of Lily's backpack. "Lily, I don't know what you're searching for, but I think I figured something out. I'm sorry I haven't been around lately. There's been a lot going on with my family, and I just needed some space. But I think I'm finally starting to understand that the answers we're all looking for might not come from the usual places. Maybe we're all supposed to find them together. Meet me after school by the old oak tree near the field. I need to talk to you. Love, Emma." Lily's heart skipped a beat. Emma had always been a little unpredictable, but this note was different. There was something in it that felt important. She couldn't wait to meet her after school. After the final bell rang, Lily rushed to the old oak tree. She found Emma sitting on the grass, her knees drawn up to her chest, looking a little somber but resolute. "Hey, you okay?" Lily asked, sitting down beside her. Emma took a deep breath. "Yeah, I've been thinking a lot. About everything we've talked about, the search for answers, love, relationships. You've been changing a lot lately, Lily, and I think I've been missing something." Lily waited, sensing that Emma was about to say something important. "I've been so focused on the wrong things. I've always thought that figuring things out meant going it alone, doing everything by myself. But maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe we're supposed to find the answers together. You and me, and everyone else around us. Maybe that's where the real answers are." Lily's heart warmed. "Emma, I think you're right. It's not about doing it alone. It's about the connections we have with each other. That's what makes everything meaningful." Emma smiled, a small tear slipping down her cheek. "Yeah, it's like we're all on this crazy journey together, right? And maybe that's where we'll find the truth." Lily nodded, feeling a rush of understanding. The pieces were finally starting to come together. She didn't have all the answers, but she didn't need to. The journey, together with the people who mattered, was the answer in itself. With her heart full of new understanding and her bond with Emma stronger than ever, Lily would soon find herself at a crossroads. An unexpected event was about to change everything she thought she knew about life, love, and the universe, forever. Lily's heart was light as she walked home that afternoon. Emma's words had struck something deep inside her, a sense of peace and clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt like she was on the right path. She wasn't just searching for answers anymore. She was embracing the journey itself, with all its twists and turns, and most importantly, she was doing it with the people who mattered most. The evening sky was painted in shades of orange and pink as she walked, her thoughts drifting back to the conversation with Dr. Reyes. The idea that connection was the key to understanding everything, life, love, even God, had resonated deeply. It wasn't just about finding answers to the universe's biggest mysteries. It was about embracing the people in her life and the relationships that shaped her understanding of the world. But just as she reached her doorstep, something unexpected happened. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. At first, Lily thought it might be a message from Emma, but when she looked at the screen, her eyes widened in shock. It was an email from an unfamiliar address. "Dear Lily, I hope this message finds you well. I've been following your journey and the questions you've been exploring about science, faith, and the search for truth. It's clear that you're a young person who has a deep curiosity about the world, and I admire your dedication to understanding the complexities of life. I'd like to invite you to a private conversation with me. There's much more to discuss, and I believe you have much to contribute to this ongoing conversation about humanity's place in the universe. We'll meet virtually to explore some of the topics that you've been grappling with. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas. Best, Elon Musk. Lily froze, her finger hovering over the screen. Was this real? Could this really be Elon Musk reaching out to her? She quickly double-checked the email address. It was verified, and there was no doubt. It was from the billionaire entrepreneur himself. Lily's heart raced as she felt an overwhelming sense of disbelief and excitement. How could this be happening? Just a few weeks ago, she had sent Elon Musk that simple, heartfelt email asking about the intersection of science, faith, and human connection. And now, he was inviting her to talk with him? Her first instinct was to show Emma, but then she paused. This was her moment, something she had worked toward, something that felt like a culmination of all her questions, all her struggles, and all her discoveries. That evening, Lily sat down at her desk, staring at the email. She took a deep breath and typed a response, her fingers trembling slightly as she hit send. Dear Mr. Musk, I am beyond grateful for your message and the opportunity to speak with you. I have been exploring questions related to the intersection of science, faith, and human connection, and I would be honored to discuss these topics further with you. Please let me know a convenient time for the conversation. Thank you again for this incredible opportunity. Warmly, Lily. After hitting send, Lily sat back in her chair, her mind reeling. She couldn't believe this was real. The conversation she had dreamed of, one with Elon Musk, the person who had sparked so much of her recent thinking, was finally going to happen. The next few days passed in a blur. Lily was filled with anticipation, but also a sense of nervousness. What would she say? How could she express everything she had learned, everything she was still trying to understand, in just one conversation with someone who had shaped so much of the world's view on technology and space exploration? She had no idea what to expect, but she knew one thing for sure. This was going to be the most important conversation of her life. Finally, the day arrived. The moment Lily had been waiting for had come. At precisely 5 p.m., Lily sat in front of her computer, her fingers poised over the keyboard. The video call popped up on the screen, and there, sitting in front of a minimalist backdrop, was Elon Musk himself. He smiled warmly as he greeted her. Lily, it's great to meet you. Thank you for agreeing to this conversation. Lily swallowed hard, trying to steady her nerves. Thank you for inviting me. I'm not sure where to start. Elon chuckled softly. No need to worry. I'm just as curious to hear what you have to say. I've read some of your thoughts on the connection between science and faith. I think it's a fascinating topic. Tell me, where are you on your journey? What have you discovered so far? Lily took a deep breath, her mind racing. This was her chance to share everything she had learned over the past few weeks. Well, I've been thinking a lot about how science and faith don't have to be at odds with each other. I used to think that the two were separate. Science was about facts, about understanding the world through data and evidence, and faith was about belief in something beyond the physical world. But I've started to realize that they might actually complement each other. Elon leaned forward, his interest piqued. Go on. Lily smiled nervously but pressed on. I think that the search for truth, whether through science or faith, is about more than just finding the right answers. It's about how we connect with each other, how we experience love and community. I think the people we meet and the relationships we form play a crucial role in understanding the bigger picture. For me, the more I've explored this idea, the more I believe that love, connection, and human experience are at the heart of everything. Whether we're studying the stars or asking the big questions about life. Elon's expression softened, and he nodded thoughtfully. I think you're onto something, Lily. The human connection, the relationships we form. It's a central part of the human experience. And sometimes, those connections can lead us to deeper understanding in ways that raw data alone can't. Lily felt her heart race as she realized that this conversation, this connection with Elon Musk, was affirming everything she had been learning. The journey was about relationships. It was about people. And that, she was beginning to understand, was where the answers lay. As the conversation continued, Lily found herself more at ease. They talked about the future of space exploration, the potential for technology to change the world, and the role of human connection in building a better future. But through it all, one thing was clear to Lily. This conversation wasn't just a learning experience. It was a validation of everything she had been thinking. Love, connection, and the search for truth weren't just abstract concepts. They were real. They were the foundation of everything that mattered. As Lily's conversation with Elon Musk came to an end, she felt more certain than ever about her path. But little did she know, the lessons she had learned would soon be put to the test in a way she could never have imagined. Lily's heart raced with excitement and awe as the video call with Elon Musk ended. The last words they shared echoed in her mind. Sometimes, the greatest breakthroughs don't come from technology, but from understanding how we, as humans, connect with one another. It was a thought that lingered, like a spark that refused to fade. That conversation had been a turning point for Lily, affirming everything she had been learning over the past few months. It wasn't just about the universe, or even about God. It was about people, about how the bonds we form, through love, compassion, and shared understanding, shaped the very essence of existence. But as the excitement began to fade, a lingering doubt settled in Lily's chest. How could she integrate everything she learned into her own life? How could she embrace connection fully when the world often felt so fractured and uncertain? The answer, as it would soon become clear, wasn't as simple as it seemed. 2 days after the call with Elon, Lily received unexpected news. Emma's family was moving. Emma's father had been offered a promotion at work, one that required them to relocate across the country. The news hit Lily like a tidal wave, and she could hardly believe it when she first heard. They'd been best friends for years. They'd confided in each other, laughed together, cried together. And now, Emma was leaving. It felt like the universe was mocking her, as if the very connection she had come to value most was being torn away. Lily tried to be strong. She knew Emma was excited for the new adventure, and she didn't want to show her sadness. But as the days passed and the moving truck began to fill with boxes, a deep ache settled in Lily's chest. She had learned so much about the importance of human connection, but here she was, faced with the loss of one of the most important relationships of her life. The night before Emma's departure, the two girls sat together under the old oak tree near their school, just like they had when they were younger. The tree had always been their spot, the place where they would talk about their hopes and fears, where they would dream about the future. Emma looked out over the field, her expression quiet. "I don't want to go, Lily, but I have to. My dad says it's a great opportunity, and I don't want to hold him back." Lily nodded, though her throat tightened with emotion. "I get it. I do. But it's still hard. It's like a part of me is leaving with you." "I know." Emma turned toward her, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to leave you behind. You've been my best friend for so long. I feel like we've been on this journey together, and now I'm stepping off a different path." Lily felt the weight of Emma's words, and a tear slipped down her own cheek. "I don't know how to keep going without you. You're the one person I could always count on." Emma took her hand. "Lily, you've got this. You've learned so much already. You've been asking all the big questions. Don't stop asking. And don't stop connecting with people. There are so many more out there waiting for you. The world is full of possibilities, and so are you." Lily squeezed Emma's hand. "But what if I'm just not ready? What if I don't know how to keep going without you by my side?" "You are ready," Emma said firmly. "You've always been ready. You just need to trust yourself. Trust the journey. It's not about having all the answers right now. It's about being open to where life leads you." The next morning, Emma and her family drove away. Lily stood at the curb, watching as her best friend disappeared into the distance. A part of her wanted to run after the car, to call out for Emma to come back. But instead, she stood there, feeling the weight of the moment. This was the test of everything she had learned about connection, about the importance of relationships, and about the value of love and faith in the face of loss. For the next few weeks, Lily threw herself into her studies, trying to distract herself from the emptiness Emma's departure had left behind. She talked with Dr. Reyes, who had been following her progress and offering advice, but even the deep philosophical discussions felt like a hollow echo compared to the deep connection she'd had with Emma. It was as if the warmth and certainty she had once found in her friendship were now distant, like a fading memory. One afternoon, while walking through the park to clear her mind, Lily saw a group of kids huddled together, laughing and playing. One of them, about her age, caught her eye. The boy was sitting by himself on a bench, sketching in a notebook. His name was Noah, and he had recently moved to the town, though Lily didn't know much about him. Curious, Lily approached him. "Hey, what are you drawing?" she asked, her voice tentative. Noah looked up, startled at first, but then offered a small smile. "Just some sketches. I'm trying to capture the way the light changes on the trees. I'm new here, so I'm still figuring out the place." Lily smiled back, feeling a small spark of connection. "I know the feeling. I used to be friends with someone who just moved away, actually." Noah nodded. "I get that. It's hard to start over. But sometimes, I think it's the only way to really see things differently. You get to experience everything fresh." The words resonated with Lily, reminding her of something Dr. Reyes had said. Sometimes the answers come not when you're looking, but when you're open to seeing things in a new way. They talked for a while, and Lily found herself feeling lighter than she had in weeks. There was something about Noah's quiet confidence, his ability to find beauty in the world around him, that reminded her of what she had learned about connection. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a new chapter. As Lily walked home that afternoon, her mind was full of possibilities. She had learned so much already, about love, about loss, and about the importance of human connection. But what Emma had said still echoed in her mind. The world is full of possibilities, and so are you. Perhaps it wasn't about holding on to the past. Perhaps it was about being open to what came next. Emma's departure had been painful, but it was also an opportunity for Lily to connect with new people, to embrace new experiences, and to continue her journey toward understanding the greater truth. With a new friend in her life and a renewed sense of purpose, Lily thought the hardest part was behind her. But as fate would have it, she was about to face a challenge far greater than she ever imagined. A challenge that would test everything she believed about love, faith, and human connection. Lily woke up the next morning with a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. Her conversation with Noah had been a small but important breakthrough. She felt like the world, in all its complexity, was beginning to open up to her once again. Maybe Emma's departure wasn't the end of everything. It could be the beginning of something new. She smiled at the thought. Life, she realized, was full of unexpected chapters. But as she headed to school that day, a shadow seemed to fall over her newfound sense of peace. It all started in her first period class, history with Mr. Harris. The topic of the day was space exploration. The class had just finished discussing the recent Mars missions when Mr. Harris asked a question that made Lily freeze in her seat. "Let's imagine for a moment," Mr. Harris said, his voice cool and calculated, "that humans colonize Mars. What do you think would happen to the concept of God? Would the people on Mars still have faith in something larger than themselves? Would their understanding of God change? Or would religion just be another earthbound belief that fades away with time?" Lily's heart began to race. It was as though Mr. Harris's question was directly targeting everything she had been grappling with in her own life. The intersection of faith, science, and human connection. It was as though the universe itself was giving her a challenge. She raised her hand tentatively, despite the sudden nervousness gripping her. I think it depends on the people. If they still feel the need for connection, whether to each other, to the world, or to something bigger, then faith wouldn't just disappear. It would evolve with the situation." Mr. Harris raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Interesting. But would that be enough to sustain belief? The people on Mars would be far removed from the traditions and histories that shape religion on Earth. Would faith survive, or would science become the ultimate belief?" Lily hesitated, her mind swirling. She had spent so much time exploring this very question herself. Faith was about connection, she believed. It wasn't about location or tradition. It was about something deeper. But how could she explain this to her class, to someone like Mr. Harris, who seemed so grounded in the logical and the factual? Before she could gather her thoughts, Noah, who had been sitting beside her, raised his hand. "I think what Lily's trying to say is that faith isn't just about tradition, it's about human need. People need meaning, no matter where they are. Maybe, on Mars, people would find new ways to express that need. Maybe they'd start to see their existence in a new light. Lily looked at Noah in surprise. His words were exactly what she had been thinking, but she hadn't had the courage to voice them. For a moment, their eyes met, and she felt a quiet connection. It was as if Noah understood, without needing any explanation, the deeper truth that Lily had been struggling to put into words. Mr. Harris nodded thoughtfully, though a skeptical glint lingered in his eyes. Interesting perspective. But how does that connect to the idea of science? If we're talking about a future where humans are living on Mars, science will be at the forefront of survival. Faith may become a secondary consideration in the face of so many unknowns. Lily felt a small surge of frustration. Mr. Harris was right. Science would play a crucial role in survival. But that didn't mean it was the only thing that mattered. She glanced at Noah again, who offered her a subtle nod of encouragement. She took a deep breath and spoke again, this time with more confidence. I think science and faith can complement each other. Science is about understanding the physical world, but faith, or belief, is about understanding our place in it. Science helps us survive, but faith gives us something to live for. There was a pause in the room as everyone processed her words. Even Mr. Harris seemed to soften, though he didn't say much in response. Instead, he moved on to the next part of the lesson, but the air had shifted. Lily's heart still raced, but it wasn't from fear. It was from the thrill of having spoken her truth. Later that afternoon, Lily found herself sitting with Noah again, in the quiet corner of the library. There were so many things she wanted to say, things she hadn't been able to articulate in class. As they sat down with their books, Noah spoke first. That was really good what you said, about faith and science. I think you've got a point, he said, his voice thoughtful. A lot of people think the two can't exist together, but I don't know. Maybe we just haven't figured out how to balance them yet. Lily smiled, grateful for Noah's understanding. Yeah, I think that's it. People are so focused on choosing sides, on separating everything into categories. But life doesn't work like that, does it? There's more to it. We have to be open to finding the connections. Noah's eyes sparkled as he nodded. Exactly. It's like how we're always trying to discover new worlds. Whether it's exploring the stars or just trying to understand each other. It's all about connection. It's what makes us human. Lily's chest tightened slightly. She had thought she would always have Emma by her side to talk about these things. But here she was, having this conversation with Noah, and it felt just as important, just as meaningful. Maybe connection wasn't about holding on to the people you thought would always be there. It was about being open to new possibilities, new friendships, new ways of thinking. The next day, Lily received an email that would change everything. It was from Dr. Reyes. Dear Lily, I've been following your progress with great interest, and I believe you're ready for a new challenge. There is an upcoming event on the intersection of science, faith, and human connection that I think you'd be perfect for. It's a panel discussion that will be held in New York City next month. I've spoken with the organizers, and they've agreed to have you speak as one of the panelists. This is an excellent opportunity for you to share your thoughts and engage with others who are asking similar questions. Let me know if you're interested. Best. Dr. Reyes. Lily stared at the email in disbelief. She had never imagined that her journey of exploration and self-discovery would lead to something like this. Speaking at a panel in New York? It felt like a dream, but it was real. And this time, Lily felt ready. She had learned so much about connection and faith, about the balance between science and belief. And now, she was going to share it with the world. As Lily prepared for the panel in New York, she realized that the journey she had been on was far from over. There was still so much to discover, and the real test of everything she believed was about to begin. Lily stood in front of her mirror that evening, adjusting the collar of her blouse, her reflection staring back at her with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. The email from Dr. Reyes had arrived 2 days ago, and in the short time since, her life had taken a sudden, exhilarating turn. She was going to New York. She was going to speak at a panel about the intersection of science, faith, and human connection. And for the first time, she truly felt ready. The days leading up to the event had been a whirlwind. She had pored over books, articles, and notes, trying to organize her thoughts and prepare for the big day. The speakers on the panel included several renowned scientists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders, people whose ideas she had admired for years. They were experts in their fields. And here she was, just a high school senior, hoping her own perspective could somehow add to the conversation. Her mind drifted back to the moments that had led her here. From the first email she'd sent to Elon Musk to the conversation with Dr. Reyes, to her deepening understanding of the relationship between science and faith. Every piece of her journey had felt like a puzzle coming together. And now, she was about to step into the arena where all of those pieces would be on display. Lily took a deep breath, looking herself in the eyes. "You've got this," she whispered, repeating the words like a mantra. She wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for everyone who had ever struggled to find balance between belief and reason, between connection and independence. She was speaking for the little girl who had once asked Elon Musk about God and had learned that the answers weren't always clear, but they were worth seeking. The flight to New York was filled with anticipation, but also a deep sense of peace. As the plane soared above the clouds, Lily gazed out the window, watching the world shrink beneath her. She thought about everything she had learned so far, the importance of human connection, the value of questioning, and the idea that faith wasn't something to be understood, but something to be lived. It was the foundation for everything she had come to believe, even in the face of uncertainty. When she arrived at the conference venue, the atmosphere was electric. The event hall was filled with people from all walks of life: scientists, students, religious leaders, and thinkers, each with their own perspective on the questions that had defined humanity for millennia. The panels were scheduled to begin in the evening, but Lily arrived early to get a sense of the place. Her heart pounded as she walked through the lobby, observing the crowds and the excitement in the air. Dr. Reyes had already arrived, and he greeted her with a warm smile. "Lily, I'm so glad you made it. You're going to do great. Just remember, this is about sharing your truth, your journey. That's all anyone ever really wants to hear." Lily nodded, trying to suppress the nervousness bubbling in her chest. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." "You are," Dr. Reyes assured her. "You've already lived the journey. Now it's just about sharing it." When the time came for the panel to start, Lily's stomach fluttered with nerves. She was introduced as the youngest speaker, which only heightened the pressure. But as she made her way to the stage, something shifted inside her. The crowd's expectant gaze didn't feel like a burden. It felt like an invitation. She was no longer a stranger to this conversation. She had been living it. She had been asking the big questions about science, faith, love, and human connection, and now it was time to share her answers. The panel began with a discussion between the other speakers, each one weighing in on the role of faith in a scientific world. They spoke about the necessity of evidence, the limitations of religion in an increasingly technological society, and the challenges of reconciling faith with facts. For a while, Lily listened quietly, absorbing their insights. Their voices were deep and authoritative. But as the conversation went on, she realized something. They were all talking about the same things that she had been asking. They just had different answers, different ways of approaching the questions. And in that moment, Lily understood. Her voice mattered just as much as theirs. It didn't have to be based on years of research or centuries of tradition. It could come from her heart, from the experiences and questions that had shaped her worldview. It was her turn to speak. The moderator turned to her and smiled. "Lily, you're the youngest person here, but you've been asking some big questions. How do you see the relationship between science, faith, and human connection?" Lily stood, her legs a bit unsteady, but she felt the weight of everything she had learned. The conversations, the discoveries, the challenges, and she felt ready. "I think that science and faith don't have to be opposites. For a long time, I thought they were. I thought you had to choose one or the other. But what I've learned is that both are a way of understanding the world. Science helps us understand the physical world, the stars, the earth, the laws of nature. But faith is what helps us understand our place in the world. It's not about facts or evidence. It's about connection." She paused for a moment, taking a breath. Connection is the key to everything. Whether we're studying the universe or asking questions about God, it's the relationships we form that matter the most. It's the love we give and receive, the people we meet, and the experiences that shape us. Science and faith, they both help us understand the universe. But it's our connections with each other that make it meaningful. Lily looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the other speakers and the audience. They were listening, really listening, and in that moment, she felt the truth of what she had said settle deep inside her. We're all in this together, she continued. And the most important thing we can do is understand that we're not alone. Whether we're on Earth or Mars, the connections we make are what will carry us forward. That's what gives us meaning. The room was silent for a moment before the audience erupted into applause. Lily felt her cheeks flush with a mixture of relief and pride. She hadn't just answered a question. She had shared a part of herself, a part of the journey that had led her to this point. And for the first time, she realized that the journey wasn't about finding all the answers. It was about embracing the questions and the connections that came along with them. That evening, as the panel concluded and the audience began to leave, Dr. Reyes approached her with a smile. "That was incredible, Lily. You've got a voice, a unique perspective. I'm proud of you." Lily smiled back, her heart full. "I think I'm finally starting to understand. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being open to what's next. And knowing that, no matter where we go, we'll never be alone." Dr. Reyes nodded. "That's the truth. And it's a truth that will guide you, wherever life takes you." As Lily walked out of the conference hall that evening, she felt like a new chapter of her life was beginning. She didn't know where the journey would take her, but she felt ready for whatever came next. The questions would continue. The connections would continue. And with every step, she would keep searching for the truth, knowing that it was never about finding the perfect answer, but about embracing the questions and the people who made them worth asking. Just when Lily thought she had found her place in the world, a new challenge would arise, one that would force her to confront the very beliefs she had shared on stage. Would the connections she had forged be enough to carry her through? Or would the unexpected throw everything into chaos? Lily's return to her daily life after the panel was filled with a sense of calm accomplishment. The event in New York had been everything she had hoped for, and more. Her talk had resonated with so many people, and she had received messages from strangers and experts alike, thanking her for sharing her perspective. The idea that science and faith could coexist in harmony had struck a chord, especially in a world where division often seemed more prominent than unity. But just as she had begun to settle into this new understanding, life threw her an unexpected curveball. It was a Friday afternoon when the news broke. The local news station flashed an emergency report across every screen in the cafeteria. Breaking news: a massive cyber attack on several major companies has resulted in unprecedented breaches of security. Early reports suggest this may be the work of a coordinated international hacking group. The effects are still unfolding. Lily's stomach tightened as she stared at the screen, her mind immediately racing. Her father worked in cybersecurity, and she knew his company was often at the forefront of defending against such attacks. She quickly texted him, her fingers trembling. "Lily, Dad, are you okay?" Seconds later, her phone buzzed with a reply. "Dad, I'm fine, but we're in crisis mode at work. Don't worry about me. Focus on your studies." The words were reassuring, yet something in his response struck her. It felt like a warning, as if he wanted her to stay focused on her life, away from the storm he was bracing for. That evening, Lily's phone rang again. It was her mom. "Lily, I need you to listen carefully." Her mom's voice was shaky. "There's been a situation at your dad's work. A serious one. He's not answering his phone, and we need to talk about what might be happening." Lily's heart raced as she sat up in bed, the peaceful world she'd been living in now feeling distant. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "I'm not sure, but this attack, it could be bad. Really bad. You need to stay safe, and I need you to come home right after school tomorrow. We don't know what this is going to escalate into." Lily's mind went blank. Cyber attacks weren't just about stolen data anymore. They could destabilize entire systems, financial systems, healthcare systems, even energy grids. The idea that her dad could be in the middle of something so massive, so dangerous, was almost too much to comprehend. Her mom's voice snapped her out of the daze. "I'll keep you updated. Stay with Noah tomorrow, okay?" I don't want you alone. Lily nodded, though her mind was 1,000 miles away. Okay, Mom. I'll stay with him. The next day, the uncertainty in the air was palpable. At school, no one seemed to know the full scope of what was happening. Teachers were tense, whispering to each other during breaks, but no official statements had been made yet. When Lily met up with Noah in the hallway before first period, he could tell something was off. Hey, you okay? Noah asked, his usual easygoing smile replaced with concern. Lily nodded, trying to play it cool. Yeah, just family stuff. Noah didn't press, but his eyes followed her with a sense of quiet understanding. He had known that something was bothering her ever since the day she had returned from New York. It was a delicate dance, trying to help her without pushing too hard. He had learned, over the past few weeks, to simply be there for her. No questions, no expectations. After school, Lily headed straight to Noah's house. The weight of the news about her dad's company sat heavily on her shoulders. She hadn't spoken to him all day, and it was impossible not to worry. Come on in, Noah greeted her, stepping aside as she walked into his house. His parents were away for the weekend, so they had the place to themselves. Lily sat down on the couch, her phone in her hand, scrolling through the latest headlines. She was trying to stay calm, trying to focus on the things she could control, but the uncertainty was suffocating. Her dad's silence weighed on her like a stone in her chest. Noah sat beside her, not saying anything, but his presence was a comfort. He had always known how to be there when words didn't seem enough. They sat in companionable silence for a while, until Lily's phone buzzed again. Her heart leaped as she saw her dad's name on the screen. Dad, she answered quickly. Lily, I'm fine. We're still locked down at the office. Her dad's voice was strained but calm. It's bad, but we're working through it. I need you to understand that things might get worse before they get better. Stay safe, and don't try to contact me unless it's an emergency. Lily felt a flood of relief hearing his voice, but it was mixed with anxiety. Are you sure you're okay? What's going on? We're doing everything we can. But this isn't just about us. This attack could have global implications. Stay where you are, and don't worry about me. I'll call you when I can. Lily hung up the phone, her thoughts swirling. Her dad had said it himself. This wasn't just a simple breach. It was a major incident that could have far-reaching consequences. What do we do now? Noah asked, his voice quiet. What do you think is going to happen? Lily looked at him, her mind racing with everything she had heard. There was so much uncertainty, so many questions. But one thing became clear. Her world and the world around her was changing. The crisis wasn't just something her father was dealing with. It was a reflection of the larger battle between control and chaos that Lily had sensed in her own life. The idea of faith, connection, and understanding suddenly felt more urgent than ever. What could she hold on to when the foundations she had relied on were shaking beneath her feet? Lily met Noah's gaze. I don't know, she said honestly, but whatever happens, we're not alone. We have each other. Noah nodded, his expression softening with understanding. Yeah, we do. That night, Lily barely slept. Her mind was on her father, on the cyber attack, and on the uncertain future that lay ahead. It wasn't just the attack that was threatening everything she had known. It was the realization that in a world that was becoming more interconnected every day, nothing was ever truly secure. Her belief in the importance of connection, of finding meaning and balance in the chaos, suddenly felt like both a source of strength and a challenge. And yet, amidst all the uncertainty, Lily knew one thing. The questions she had been asking about faith, science, and connection were more than just abstract thoughts. They were practical, urgent. In a world that seemed to be crumbling at the edges, what could they rely on to hold it all together? As the cyber attack worsens, Lily's family is faced with a devastating crisis that tests their faith, their resilience, and their sense of connection. Will Lily's understanding of faith and human connection be enough to guide her through the turmoil? Or will the forces of fear and uncertainty tear everything apart? The next few days were a blur of uncertainty. The news continued to report on the escalating cyber attack, and the scope of its effects was growing more severe with each passing hour. Major companies were crippled, hospitals faced delays, and everyday life seemed to inch closer to a standstill. Lily's father remained unreachable, and her mother had become increasingly worried. As the days passed, Lily's own fears grew. She had heard snippets of conversations at school and on the news, trying to piece together the magnitude of the crisis, but it felt like the world was spiraling faster than she could comprehend. Every time she tried to contact her dad, there was no response. It wasn't just the immediate danger that unsettled her. It was the unknown. That Friday evening, her mother called again. "Lily," her mom's voice trembled. "We need to talk. I don't want you to panic, but things are getting worse. Your father's company, they haven't been able to regain control of the systems yet. This is bigger than we thought." Lily's breath hitched. "What do you mean? What's happening now?" "There's been talk of larger-scale attacks, on the power grids, on the financial systems. They're saying it could take weeks to fix. People are getting nervous. The government's warning about potential blackouts, even food shortages." Lily felt the floor fall out from under her. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. She glanced at the clock on her phone. Her father hadn't texted or called since the last message. He was still in crisis mode at work, but as each hour passed, the silence grew louder. "Mom, what do we do? What if it's too late?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I know, sweetheart. I know. But we have to stay calm, okay? Stay close to Noah. Stay home. We're going to get through this. But we need to be ready, in case things go from bad to worse." The words were meant to reassure her, but Lily couldn't shake the fear that had settled deep in her chest. What if her dad was in danger? What if the systems couldn't be restored? The enormity of the situation was starting to hit her all at once. The next day, Lily met up with Noah, who had been trying to reach her all morning. He could see the strain on her face, the deepening worry in her eyes. Her calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a palpable anxiety she couldn't hide. "Noah, I'm scared," she admitted quietly as they walked down the familiar path through their neighborhood. "What if this attack really is as bad as they're saying? What if my dad can't fix it? What if everything changes?" Noah walked beside her, his hand gently brushing against hers. "I get it, Lily. It's all really overwhelming. But I know your dad. He's tough. He's been through crazy stuff before. He'll figure it out. He's smart, and he's got a great team working with him." Lily nodded, grateful for his optimism, but deep down, she wasn't sure if it was enough. Her father had always been the steady one, the one who had all the answers. And now, he was in the thick of it, just like everyone else. But Noah's words kept echoing in her mind. "He's smart. He's tough." Noah continued, his voice soft but steady. "And Lily, remember what you said at the panel in New York? That we're all in this together. I don't think that's changed. Whatever happens, you're not alone. We'll face it together." Lily turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and gratitude. In that moment, she realized that despite the chaos, she had something solid to hold on to. Their friendship, their connection. I don't know what to do. I don't even know if I can help," she said, her voice breaking. "Everything feels like it's falling apart." Noah stopped walking, pulling her to a halt. He looked directly into her eyes, his expression fierce and unwavering. "You're already helping, Lily. By being you. By staying strong for the people who care about you. That's enough. And you've got your voice. Your message. That means something." Lily swallowed hard. Her voice. The very thing that had carried her to New York. The thing that had resonated with so many others. Was it enough to carry her now, in the face of this uncertainty? "I don't know how," she whispered, "but I'm going to try. I have to believe that it will make a difference." That evening, the situation only worsened. Lily's mother told her that things were getting more chaotic as time went on. Businesses were shutting down, the power grid was showing signs of strain, and people were beginning to panic buy supplies. Her dad's company had warned that they were unable to fix the breach entirely, and they didn't know when things would return to normal. Lily's mom stayed close to home, constantly checking her phone for updates, and they began to prepare for the possibility of extended outages. Lily found herself spending more time with Noah. They talked about everything and nothing, school, their future plans, and the things that used to seem so important now feeling distant in comparison to the looming crisis. Every time Lily checked her phone, she was met with silence. She had sent several texts to her dad, but there was no response. By the second week of the cyber attack, Lily could barely concentrate on anything. Her mind constantly wandered to her father, wondering if he was safe, if he was still working round the clock, trying to fix the damage. She had never seen him so busy or so distant before. But there was something more, something that was growing inside her. The realization that the questions she had spent so much time pondering about faith, science, and connection weren't just abstract thoughts anymore. They were a matter of survival. They were about how to stay grounded in the midst of chaos, about how to find hope when everything felt uncertain. One evening, as Lily sat in the quiet of her room, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her dad. "Dad, Lily, we're okay. I'm still here. We're pushing forward, doing everything we can. Please don't worry. I love you." She stared at the message for a long time, her breath catching in her throat. Her father was safe. He was still there, fighting. The relief that washed over her was almost overwhelming, but there was still so much left to face. Lily typed a quick response, her fingers shaking. "Lily, I love you, Dad. Please stay safe. I'm here, waiting for you." It wasn't much, but it was enough. As the crisis continued, Lily found herself reflecting more deeply on the lessons she had learned over the past few months. The panel in New York, her father's silent strength, and the unwavering support from Noah. It all came together in her mind. The one thing that had kept her grounded throughout all of this was connection, not just between her and the people she loved, but with the world at large, the shared sense of humanity that connected them all. And now, more than ever, that connection was the only thing that could help her navigate through the storm. Just as things begin to stabilize, Lily faces a new test. Her dad's company uncovers a shocking truth about the cyber attack that changes everything. What does this new revelation mean for their family? And how will it affect Lily's understanding of the very concepts she's been fighting to embrace? Lily had always considered herself a curious person. Her natural tendency was to ask questions, to dig deeper, to find the truth hidden beneath the surface. But this new revelation about the cyber attack was unlike anything she had ever imagined. It shattered the sense of safety she had been clinging to and plunged her deeper into uncertainty. It all began when her father finally called her late one evening. She had been waiting for days for this moment, and when his name appeared on her screen, her heart skipped a beat. "Dad," Lily answered quickly, trying to sound calm despite the surge of emotion rushing through her. "Hey, kiddo." His voice was steady, but there was an underlying tension. "I'm sorry I haven't been able to talk much. Things are still chaotic over here, but we're making progress. I was so worried about you," Lily said, her words tumbling out. "You're okay, right? You're still working on fixing everything?" "I'm fine," he reassured her. "The team's been working around the clock. We're getting closer to containing the breach. But I need to tell you something. Something that might change how you see all of this." Lily felt a lump form in her throat. "What do you mean?" Her father sighed, his voice heavy. "We discovered something. The attack, it wasn't just random. It wasn't just a group of hackers looking for profit. This was planned, and it was far more organized than we initially thought." Lily's stomach dropped. "Planned? By who? Why?" "I can't say much yet, but this wasn't some rogue attack. This was a carefully orchestrated event designed to destabilize entire sectors of the economy. We've uncovered evidence suggesting that the attackers had inside knowledge that goes beyond just the tech. They had information about the infrastructure of several major systems, including the grid and financial institutions." Lily sat in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of what he was saying. This wasn't just a breach. It was an attack on the very foundation of society. "What does that mean for us?" Lily finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means that this isn't just about a few companies losing data or financial losses," her dad continued. "It's about control. Whoever is behind this is trying to shift the balance of power, manipulate entire systems, disrupt economies, and cause fear. They want to break the structure of things we take for granted." Lily's mind raced. This wasn't just a technological crisis. It was an ideological one, a battle for control in a world that was already on edge. Everything she had been grappling with, the questions about faith, science, and humanity, suddenly felt more urgent. How could she continue to believe in the goodness of people, in the possibility of connection and unity, when there were forces out there deliberately trying to tear everything apart? "I don't understand, Dad," Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. "Why would someone want to do that? What's the point?" Her father's voice softened. "I don't know, Lily, but I think we'll find out soon enough. The people behind this, they're using fear to manipulate everything. And fear, as you know, is a powerful tool." Lily swallowed, her thoughts swirling. She had seen how fear had shaped her own actions over the past few weeks, how fear of the unknown had driven her to seek comfort in answers that didn't always come. It had kept her at a distance from the truth, from the hard questions that were too difficult to face. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling, "what do we do? How do we fight back against something like this?" Her father was silent for a moment before responding. "We keep doing what we do best. We fight with our knowledge, our integrity, and our connection to the people we love. We don't let fear win. But we also need to be prepared for what comes next." Lily nodded, even though she wasn't sure what it meant to be prepared for something like this. But one thing was clear. The future had become even more uncertain. The next few days felt like a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, her father's call had brought a sense of clarity. The attack wasn't random. There was a purpose behind it, and they were slowly uncovering the truth. But the more Lily thought about it, the more the weight of the situation pressed down on her. How could anyone, combat something so insidious? Something that wasn't just a problem to fix, but a force to reckon with? She had talked to Noah about it in the days that followed, but it was hard to put her feelings into words. They spent a lot of time together, watching the news, discussing the latest developments, trying to make sense of it all. "Do you think people really want to destroy everything?" Lily asked him one evening as they sat on her porch, the soft glow of the streetlights casting long shadows across the lawn. Noah paused for a moment, his brow furrowing. "I don't know, Lily. I mean, there are always people who want control, people who want power. But I don't think most people are like that. I think most people want peace. They want to feel safe, connected. But how do we know?" Lily asked, a note of despair in her voice. "How do we know who to trust anymore? How do we know if we're even on the right side?" Noah shifted closer, placing a hand gently on her arm. "We trust the people who show us who they are. We trust the ones who stand by us, who show us love and understanding. And when the world feels like it's falling apart, we hold on to the things that matter most: family, friends, kindness." Lily felt a flicker of hope, though it was faint. But what if that's not enough? What if the world is too far gone? "No one knows what's coming next," Noah said softly. "But I know one thing. We can't give up. We have to keep believing that good will always find a way to shine through." Lily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words settle inside her. In a world where everything seemed so uncertain, perhaps that was the most important truth she could hold on to. That love, connection, and kindness were the most powerful tools they had. Days turned into weeks, and the situation continued to escalate. Lily's father's company worked tirelessly to contain the damage, but the impact of the attack was far-reaching. The world was shifting beneath their feet, and there was still so much they didn't know. But amidst the chaos, Lily found herself slowly coming to terms with the truth. Life had never been simple, and it never would be. But the way they responded to the challenges, that was something they could control. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "We fight with our knowledge, our integrity, and our connection to the people we love." Perhaps that was the key, fighting for the things that mattered, even when the world around them seemed to be crumbling. As the world continues to unravel, Lily and her family are forced to make difficult decisions about how to move forward. With new threats emerging on the horizon, can they stay united in the face of growing uncertainty? Or will fear and division drive them apart? Lily sat at the kitchen table, staring down at the half-eaten plate of food in front of her. Her mother had made spaghetti, one of Lily's favorites, but it tasted bland, like everything else in the world. The attack on the digital infrastructure continued to spread its ripple effects, and no one seemed to know when things would stabilize. The power grids, financial markets, and healthcare systems were all under strain. It felt like the world was unraveling, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Her mother, sitting across from her, pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and glanced at Lily with a concerned look. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Lily nodded, but it was more of a reflex than an actual indication of her feelings. She hadn't been okay for a while now. Everything had changed, the world outside, and more intimately, her own sense of what mattered most. The silence between her and her dad had stretched longer than she could bear. The fleeting messages, the missed calls, the sudden urgency in his voice. It was all too much. She didn't want to admit it, but it was starting to feel like she was losing him. "I'm just tired," Lily said softly, pushing her food around the plate. "It's like everything is falling apart, Mom." Her mother sighed, setting her fork down. "I know, honey. I know. We're all feeling it. But we need to be strong. We need to hold on to what we can. Together." Lily couldn't help but think about Noah's words from the other day. He'd said they had to hold on to kindness, to the people who loved them, but she wasn't sure that would be enough. What if the world needed more than love and kindness? What if it needed something else, something that felt out of reach? "I keep thinking about what Dad said," Lily murmured, "about the people behind this, about how they're trying to destabilize everything." Her mother's face darkened. "You think this is just about a few bad people trying to make a quick buck?" "I don't know, but it feels bigger than that," Lily said, feeling the weight of the thought pressing down on her chest. The world has always been connected, on a surface level, at least. We had systems in place that we trusted, that kept us safe. And now those systems are breaking down. If we can't trust technology anymore, what do we have left? Her mother didn't immediately answer. Instead, she stood up, walked over to the window, and stared out into the yard, her hand resting on the curtain as she looked into the distance. After a long pause, she turned back to Lily. "You're right," she said quietly. "Things have changed, but I don't think it's just about the systems. I think it's about what we do now, the choices we make." Lily's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Her mother sighed and sat down beside her. "This whole thing, this cyber attack, it's shaking people's faith in everything, in technology, in politics, in each other. But it's also revealing something else. There are people out there who are fighting back, people who refuse to give up, who are working tirelessly to make things right. And we can't lose sight of that. But what can we do? We're not tech experts. We're not even in the right circles to make a difference," Lily said, her voice tinged with frustration. Her mother's gaze softened. "You don't need to be a tech expert, sweetheart. You just need to know what matters most. You and we've talked a lot about what it means to stand for something, to be part of a greater purpose. This is the moment to remember that. What are we willing to do to protect the things we care about?" Lily stared at her mother, processing the question. What was she willing to do? How far was she willing to go? The world had always felt distant, abstract, like something that happened to other people. But now, it felt personal. Every choice, every action, carried weight. And the weight was crushing. "I don't know," Lily whispered. Her mother took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. But I know one thing. You're stronger than you think. You've always had a way of seeing the world differently, of understanding things that others might overlook. That's a gift. And right now, we need all the gifts we can get." The days that followed were filled with a mix of uncertainty and resolve. Lily's father called her again, though the conversation was brief. He sounded exhausted, his voice low and strained as he explained the ongoing work to restore critical systems. But amidst the technical talk, he said something that stuck with her. "We're at a tipping point, Lily. I don't know where it's all going, but I do know this. The people who are behind this want us to believe that it's over, that it's too late. But I'm telling you, it's never too late to fight, to protect what matters." Lily hung up the phone feeling a little lighter, but no less confused. Her dad had always been a beacon of logic, of reason. And yet, now he was talking about something that felt far more intangible, fighting for what matters. What did that even mean? She thought of Noah again, and how he had kept insisting that kindness and connection were the key to survival. Maybe there was something to that. Maybe it wasn't about fighting the system or taking down the attackers, but about refusing to let fear dictate the future. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with ideas and possibilities, but one thought kept repeating in her head: I need to do something. The next morning, Lily woke up with a sense of clarity. She didn't have to wait for someone else to fix the world. She could start with her community, her school, and her own circle of influence. The world was made up of smaller parts, and if each person worked to protect the pieces that mattered most, love, trust, empathy, maybe, just maybe, they could weather the storm together. She called Noah first thing, her voice determined. Noah, I've been thinking. I think we need to do something. I don't know what yet, but I know we can't just sit here and wait. Noah's response was immediate. I'm with you. What are you thinking? I think we start by talking to people, not just about the attack, but about what really matters. I think we need to remind people of what we can do together, because we can't let the bad guys win by making us forget that. Noah was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I love it. Let's start with the people we know. Our friends, our teachers, even strangers. Let's remind them that even in the middle of all this chaos, we still have each other. Lily's heart lifted as she heard the excitement in Noah's voice. Maybe they couldn't fix everything, but they could make a difference in the small ways that mattered. She knew it wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be enough to fix the world overnight, but it was a start, and sometimes that's all you needed. As the weeks continued to unfold, Lily and Noah did just that. They gathered their friends, their teachers, their neighbors, anyone they could talk to, and they began to spread a message of unity, resilience, and hope. They weren't trying to fix the world. They were just trying to remind people that it wasn't over. Not yet. And in the process, Lily realized something. Fighting for what matters wasn't just about big, sweeping changes. It was about the choices they made every day, about standing together, about choosing love over fear, about refusing to let the world be defined by those who sought to destroy it. The more they spoke, the more people listened. The more people listened, the more Lily began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was how they could fight back. Together. The tide begins to shift as Lily and Noah's movement gains traction, but the road ahead is far from easy. New threats emerge from unexpected places, and Lily is forced to confront a truth she's been avoiding. There's no going back. The world has changed, and they must find a way to adapt or risk losing everything. The weeks following Lily and Noah's decision to take action felt like a blur. What started as simple conversations in classrooms and over coffee at their local cafe quickly snowballed into something much bigger. Their message, unity, resilience, and the power of community, began to resonate in ways neither of them expected. It spread through their school, their neighborhood, and eventually across the local news outlets. People were hungry for hope, for something to hold on to in the chaos of the world. Lily sat in her room one night, scrolling through the overwhelming number of messages on her phone. People, strangers even, were reaching out, asking how they could help, how they could be a part of this movement. It was humbling and a little terrifying. She had always been a quiet person, content to stay on the sidelines. But now, the world had thrust her into the spotlight, and it felt like there was no turning back. Noah had been her rock throughout this, always encouraging her when doubt crept in. But even he seemed a little more serious now, his bright smile replaced with a look of quiet determination whenever they spoke about the next steps. This isn't just about us anymore, Lily, Noah said one afternoon as they sat in the school courtyard. He was flipping through a pile of papers, his mind clearly elsewhere, his brow furrowed. We've reached a tipping point. If we want to keep this momentum going, we're going to need more resources, more hands on deck. People are starting to listen, but if we don't organize properly, we could lose them just as quickly. Lily nodded, her heart pounding with the gravity of his words. She had known that this would require more than just a few conversations. They were building something larger than either of them had imagined, and it was growing faster than they could handle. Their movement was no longer just about talking to friends and family. It was about mobilizing a community. It was about preparing for whatever was coming next. We need to start reaching out to other communities, Lily said thoughtfully, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. Not just here. What if we connected with schools in other cities? We could share what we're doing and encourage them to spread the message too. Noah's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. It's exactly what we need. We need a network, not just a message. A network of people who are willing to act, not just talk. The idea excited her, but also overwhelmed her. How did you build a network big enough to actually make a difference? Where did they even begin? Well, first we need to make sure our message is clear, Lily said. We can't just throw a bunch of ideas out there and hope something sticks. We need to define what we stand for. Noah agreed, pulling out a notebook. Right. We need to outline what we're asking for. What's the change we want to see? And how can people get involved? They spent the next several hours drafting a mission statement, breaking it down into digestible pieces. Unity, kindness, standing up for what's right, even when the world feels divided. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was a start. By the end of the night, they had a concrete strategy for reaching out to others. They would create a website and social media pages to amplify their message, and they'd use these platforms to organize local events, rallies, community cleanups, fundraisers for those affected by the cyber attack. And as their network grew, they began hosting virtual town halls, inviting people from different cities to discuss solutions to the crisis and offer support. The plan was ambitious, but something about it felt right. There was no other option. Not anymore. The stakes had gotten too high. Lily didn't know it yet, but the call to action she and Noah had just begun would soon reach further than they could have ever anticipated. As the momentum of their movement spread across social media, their message reached the eyes and ears of some powerful people. And not all of those people had good intentions. A week later, Lily and Noah found themselves sitting in the local library, discussing the next steps for their movement. They had just finished a meeting with a small group of students from a neighboring high school, all eager to get involved. They were mapping out future plans when Lily's phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up, noticing the unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. It was a local number, but something about it felt off. Hesitating for only a second, she answered. Hello? A voice on the other end was smooth, but cold. Is this Lily Adams? Lily's pulse quickened. Yes, this is she. Who is this? My name is Jonathan Hale. I represent a number of organizations that are closely monitoring what you and your friend have been doing. Your movement, it's interesting. Lily's stomach turned. She could hear Noah's soft footsteps as he approached, sensing her discomfort. He leaned over her shoulder, his eyes scanning her face. Who are you exactly? Lily asked, trying to keep her voice steady. We are aware of the message you're spreading, Jonathan continued, his tone businesslike. We also know that you're gaining more traction than you might be ready for. People are listening, and that's a double-edged sword. You're getting attention from the right people, but also from others. Lily could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. What do you mean by others? Jonathan's voice dropped, the casual tone replaced with something more menacing. Let's just say that your little crusade could attract more danger than you're prepared for. We suggest you reconsider your actions. People in power don't take kindly to those who threaten the status quo. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just an ordinary phone call. This was a warning, a threat. What do you want from me? She demanded, her voice rising despite her attempts to stay calm. I'm simply advising you to be careful, Jonathan said smoothly. Take a step back. There's still time to avoid making a costly mistake. We can help you, if you're willing to listen. Before Lily could respond, the line went dead. She stared at her phone, feeling a mix of anger and fear swirling inside her. Noah was watching her carefully. What happened? Who was that? Lily's hands were shaking as she lowered the phone. It's them. Whoever is behind this attack, they're watching us. Noah's face hardened. And they're not happy about it. Lily's mind raced. This wasn't just a simple fight for control of technology or systems. It was bigger. It was about power, who had it, who wanted it, and who would stop at nothing to take it. And now, they were on the radar. Lily and Noah had opened a door, but they were starting to realize that the world they were trying to fix was far more dangerous than they had imagined. As the threat against Lily and Noah escalates, they must make a choice. Stay on the path of resistance or retreat into safety. But the harder the world pushes back, the more they are determined to fight. Can they outsmart those who seek to silence them? Or will the forces against them prove too strong? Lily sat in her bedroom late that night, the soft hum of her laptop filling the silence. The walls of her room, once a place of comfort, now felt suffocating. Her mind replayed Jonathan Hale's warning over and over again, like a loop she couldn't escape. It wasn't just the words he'd said. It was the underlying threat, the way he had so casually suggested they take a step back. There had been no mistaking it. They were being watched, and whoever was behind the attack wasn't going to let a couple of teenagers challenge them without consequences. She glanced over at the desk where Noah had left his notes, plans for their next event, strategies for reaching out to more communities, building their network. She couldn't bring herself to look at them anymore. Her pulse quickened as the fear settled in her chest. She was scared, but there was no turning back now. Noah had called her earlier that evening, trying to reassure her. He had been the calm one, the steady presence when everything around them seemed to be spiraling out of control. He told her that they couldn't let fear dictate their next move, that they had to keep pushing forward. But it was getting harder to ignore the warning signs. Lily took a deep breath, closing her eyes and trying to focus. It was hard to think clearly when everything felt like it was collapsing around her. The world she had known had already changed. Now, it was up to them to decide what kind of world would emerge from the ashes. Would they cower in fear, or would they stand their ground? Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Noah. "Noah, we need to talk. Can you meet me tomorrow at 10? Lily stared at the message for a moment. She could almost hear his voice through the screen, calm and collected as ever. He had a way of cutting through the noise, of getting to the heart of things. If anyone could help her make sense of all this, it was him. She typed back quickly. "Lily, yeah, I'll be there. Let's figure this out." The next morning, Lily met Noah at their usual spot, an old bench in the park behind the school. The sun was shining brightly, casting long shadows across the grass. Despite the light outside, the atmosphere between them was heavy. Noah was already sitting there when she arrived, his backpack on the ground beside him, eyes focused on the distant horizon. He looked up as she approached, offering a small, reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hey," Lily said, sitting down beside him. "I got your message. What's going on?" Noah didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out a piece of paper from his bag and handed it to her. It was a printout of a recent news article detailing the growing backlash against their movement. He had circled a particular quote from one of the interviewees, someone who seemed to have connections to the political elite. "They're not just watching us, Lily," Noah said, his voice low and serious. "They're starting to smear us, trying to paint us as some kind of fringe group. And it's only going to get worse from here." Lily read the article. The quote was a direct attack, accusing their movement of spreading misinformation and creating chaos in an already fragile political climate. The message was clear. They were being painted as the enemy. Her stomach churned. She had known this was coming, but reading it in black and white made it feel real, like their movement was being turned into a threat. And with the people behind this cyber attack pulling the strings, it wasn't just a smear campaign. It was a calculated move. "What are we supposed to do?" Lily asked, her voice a mix of frustration and fear. "How do we fight back against something like this?" Noah looked at her, his gaze intense. "We don't fight with anger. We fight with action. We keep doing what we've been doing, getting people involved, organizing, spreading our message of unity. If they want to label us, fine. Let them. But we can't let them distract us from the bigger picture." Lily looked at him, taking in his words. He was right. Anger and fear would only play into their hands. The people trying to stop them wanted them to react emotionally, to lash out. But they couldn't let that happen. They had to stay focused. "I'm scared, Noah," she admitted quietly. "I'm scared of what they'll do next. I don't know how much longer we can keep this up." Noah's expression softened, and he placed a hand on her shoulder. "I get it. But fear is just another weapon they're using to try to control us. The only way we win is by not giving in to it. We can't let them make the decision for us." Lily nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She had to push through this fear. There was no other choice. "We keep going," she said firmly. "We keep fighting. And we bring even more people into this. We get louder. We don't let them silence us. Noah smiled, his eyes lighting up with pride. That's the spirit. We'll do this together. All of us. The next few days were a whirlwind. Lily and Noah ramped up their efforts to mobilize their community, using social media, local events, and even word of mouth to spread their message. They reached out to schools, neighborhood groups, and online forums, inviting everyone to join in their cause. But as their movement gained momentum, the pressure intensified. Anonymous threats began arriving in the form of cryptic messages and emails. One night, Lily found a note taped to her front door, written in jagged, capital letters, "Stop now or pay the price." The fear that had been lurking in the back of her mind suddenly became tangible. Someone was watching them, closer than ever, and they were not going to back down. Lily showed the note to her mom, who insisted that they go to the authorities. But Lily hesitated. She didn't know if the police could protect them from the shadowy forces pulling the strings behind this. Still, her mom made her promise to be cautious, to stay safe. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every flicker of the streetlight outside, seemed like a warning. But despite the fear gnawing at her, a small spark of defiance flickered in her chest. She wasn't going to let them win. The next day, Noah called her. His voice was more urgent than usual. "Lily, they're escalating. They've started targeting some of our supporters. People who are speaking out are getting threats. We need to do something before it gets worse." Lily didn't hesitate. "We keep going. We don't stop. We make this bigger. We get everyone we can behind this." "Are you sure?" Noah asked. There was a brief pause before he added, "It could get dangerous, Lily. We might be risking everything." Lily's heart raced, but she knew, deep down, what she had to do. She wasn't going to back down now, not after everything they had built. "Yes, we're doing this. We fight for what's right." As they prepared for their next big event, a peaceful rally to bring attention to the ongoing crisis, the tension in the air was palpable. Every move they made felt like it was being watched, every word they spoke carefully scrutinized. But despite the growing threats, Lily and Noah pressed on. They were no longer just a couple of kids trying to make a difference. They were the face of something bigger, a movement that couldn't be stopped. And as Lily stood before the crowd that day, feeling the weight of everything on her shoulders, she realized something. No matter how dangerous this fight became, she couldn't go back. They had already chosen their path. This was just the beginning. As the rally unfolds, everything they've worked for is put to the test. The final confrontation is at hand, and the stakes are higher than ever. Will Lily and Noah's movement survive the ultimate challenge? Or will they be forced to face the consequences of defying those in power? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?